past decade has brought a massive wave of digitalization. There's been an evolution across the entire ecosystem where consumers are using online services more. Think about digital banking, e-commerce, ride-hailing, and so many more services that have been embraced in a large scale. The Philippines, in many ways, has always embraced this. From our high social media penetration to how our BPO industry powers the backbone of the world's biggest company. And it's now, here more than ever, that we see a massive adoption of e-services such as digital wallets and other e-commerce that are really crystallizing this change. The digitalization of activity is what is fueling the industry of AI. AI algorithms are now used by all online platforms and in industries that range from manufacturing, healthcare, finance, wholesale, and retail. Even government agencies are starting to rely on AI, particularly in the criminal justice system and many other applications. Applications in telemedicine, banking, and customer services are also being observed. Fintech is one of the industries at the forefront of AI adoption, as financial institutions broaden their offering into the market. Personalization has emerged as one of the key use cases of AI that allows fintechs to broaden their offering, maximize the experience of their customer, servicing the right product to the right customer at the right time. We have seen this drive up to 3-4 better engagement, reduce churn, improve NPS, and improve the bottom line eventually. Risk scoring is another application. By leveraging new sets of customer data, new financial services can be offered at a better price across loans, insurance, and many more services. The World Economic Forum survey in 2020 showed that a significant number of executives across financial institutions in many countries said that in the next 2 years they expect mass adoption of AI, and they expect that AI will become an essential business driver for the financial industry as a whole. Disruption not necessarily coming from the biggest companies, but from disruptors and startups, with which big companies are partnering with. For example, a software company that provides quality control as a service developed an AI-based quality control system for an international food company, which has been rolled out for a wider use after a successful pilot in Mindanao. The AI-enabled system is expected to help the company achieve its goal of zero food waste by 2025. Some of these startups are set up and incubated within conglomerates, like analytical think tanks that are set up to be as agile as startups, but with the funding and support of being a part of a bigger conglomerate. This allows them to use AI to drive better experience for each business unit of the conglomerate. There are also startups that have been building world-class capabilities in data science, supporting these companies. They develop AI tools and services for large clients, for example, Thinking Machine here in the Philippines. The disruption is happening not just with advanced tech companies, but across the sector as well. There is a misconception that B2B companies alone stand to gain advantage with AI adoption, especially in the area of personalization. However, it's been much more recognized now that AI has a lot of practical business-to-business applications, including improving supply chain, better forecasting, predictive maintenance, just to name a few. This example shows that a bright future for AI awaits, and it has been an opportunity to grow in the Philippines. In fact, the government, through the Department of Trade and Industry, has laid out the roadmap to realize the potential of AI and established the country as an AI hub in the region. This will include the building of the country's National Center for AI Research. I'm sure you will expect an answer like Netflix or Amazon. And it's true that tech giants are very good at leveraging AI when it comes to personalization and sales engagement. However, few people realize that even a Starbucks is able, through AI, to identify patterns of consumption, learn what works best for a given client in a given context, and seamlessly stimulate the sales and the engagement level of their client. And I think this illustrates how AI is so pervasive today. the foundation of AI is really the ability to extract and leverage high-quality data. Business needs to build a foundation before they get to build the most performing AI systems. And this includes having the right technology, having the right systems in place, and more importantly, having the right layer of capabilities. People think always about the tech layer, think about the cloud, think about the infrastructure that are in place. But there is a common knowledge that, in fact, technology is only 10% of the challenge. Another 20% is about having the right processes, and in that case, the right algorithm. And 70% is actually related to the ability of people to understand and extract the right value from AI. AI is a fast-moving space, so even the leading companies, the one with the deepest pocket and reputably the best talents, are leveraging external help to advance their AI agenda. It takes typically 3 steps to get to the right place. The first one is to define the right vision and shape the ambition for the company. The second one is to translate this into a set of priority use cases to extract the first value from AI. And finally, this is translated into plans, which cover, as I mentioned before, technology, algorithm, and of course people. High-performing AI requires a huge quantity of data, and therefore the ability to collect, connect, and check the quality of this data is a critical capability. Therefore, the first hurdle is really to create what we call this data lake or this data platform. And sometimes it requires companies to work very differently, to cut across silos and to transform their tech system. The second hurdle is really tech. Sometimes companies have legacy systems that they need to change, and it's becoming increasingly difficult as their business has consolidated over time. The last hurdle, but certainly not the least, is on the people side, with 2 dimensions. The first one is capabilities. It's very hard for companies to build or acquire the kind of capabilities required to run a high-performing AI organization. And everybody is competing for the same talent. The second one is really the culture, and legacy companies who have been working in one way for decades are pushed to completely change their ways of working, and this alone can take a lot of time. For any given company, there can be many use cases for AI. And of course, we'll always advise companies to set a very ambitious agenda and very clear targets. But that being said, it's also very important to be practical and realistic and to sequence the work. We'll always also recommend companies to start with 1 or 2 use cases that can demonstrate the value within the company and help mobilize. What's important is that the transformation be led by the business and not by technology, and therefore recommend the leverage of cross-functional task forces to realize the benefits. Lastly, as we mentioned, this is really a people-intensive effort, and therefore HR should also be mobilized from the start, both in our effort to recruit the right talent, but also to upskill and to transform the organization. Two common myths for AI. First myth, AI is the future, which means it's not for now, but for 5 years from now. And this is not true. Even for the Philippines, AI is very much part of our everyday life. Think of when you take Grab, or when you watch Netflix, or when you have facial recognition on your phone or at work. This is already AI at play in your day-to-day life. And many more companies, including local companies, are really embracing the agenda. The second myth about AI is that it takes away jobs. It could not be further from the truth, and many countries and many companies have realized that, and they in fact set an ambitious AI agenda precisely to augment their economic contribution and to give more opportunities for their citizens. AI effectively allows companies to strengthen their performance in many dimensions and redeploy their resources where they are needed most, redeploying from customer service to sales, redeploying from heavy HR burdens to value-added HR services. There are so many examples that demonstrate how much AI is supporting jobs instead of taking them. When shaping their AI ambitions, companies need to get quite specific on what they want to achieve, not just in terms of overall goal, but even in terms of quantitative metrics. And this is how they can measure their progress. We're fortunate that AI is really data-based, and therefore there is a very quantitative way to measure where we stand. No, I think AI is much more than that. It's really an holistic transformation that embraces data, technology, and very importantly, people. Whether we aspire for higher customer engagement, better personalization, higher sales, we can translate this into very specific KPIs and measure our progress against this. Beyond that, it's quite important to measure also our progress on the people front by regular survey, by regular measure of what we would call our digital index. Where do we stand in our readiness and our literacy on this agenda? It's true that achieving the maximum result from AI requires a multidimensional effort. It's true also that it's a multi-year journey. This is why it's so important to have clarity from the start, in the vision, in the ambition, but also, even more importantly, to prioritize and sequence the effort. Best companies are very clear in their vision and very patient and deliberate on what it takes to get there. They set the expectation right, and they measure themselves along the way. AI is revolutionizing business across the world, and the time, even for the Philippines, is now for companies to embrace the changes and set, if they are not already done so, their AI agenda. It takes a very clear vision, bold plans, and a restless focus on execution to achieve the maximum benefits from AI. Company needs to think both about the technology, their data strategy, their people side, and the culture change that are required to achieve the full benefits. It's a journey that takes time, but it's a journey, once properly delivered, that can create disproportionate value for any companies across any sectors, including here in the Philippines.